Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, owner of Fearless Financial Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Good morning, and thank you again for joining us here at Fearless Females. If you don't mind liking, subscribing, commenting with little, good little smiley face or heart emojis, or just in other ways showing us that you're listening and showing the podcast platforms that you're listening, because I really would love to see these stories get out far and wide. I think these women are awesome, and I would love to have their stories heard and seen. Today we have another awesome fearless female for our podcast. It's Melissa Wallace, and I loved her story, but the thing that I loved most was how truly authentic and vulnerable she was. She talked about a time during COVID where they were basically hit rock bottom financially, and how she recovered and just blossomed from that point. But she said, that's one thing I don't ever want to have again in my life, regretting financial stability and not having that financial stability. And as a financial planner, you can understand that hit me right in the heart. And I really love that she was able to kind of share that experience with us, because we've all been there. I mean, I know I've been there. I had 5 kids, 1 income, and there were years when it was tough. And I know that we've all, unless we're trust fund babies, probably all of us that have had that situation. And I just really appreciate her being really open about that, because that's something that as successful professional women, a lot of us go through those learning experiences. And I love that Melissa was able to share hers and how she recovered, and how she's just doing such amazing things, supporting female businesses, probably with a lot of heart and soul for those that are just getting started, as she was at one point. So let's start listening. So I am so excited. Today we've got Melissa Wallace, and she's the founder and CEO of Fierce Foundry. And she is, for those of you who are just kind of listening rather than watching, she's got this t-shirt on that says "Invest in Women." So I am convinced this is going to be the best conversation ever. Thank you so much for joining us, Melissa. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So first question always is, I'm a reader, love reading. Tell me what your favorite book is.
Okay. Well, I don't think I have a favorite. And I know I've listened to your podcast. I know what people tend to say. But I am rereading a book that I read a little while ago, and I'm going to just show it. It's The XX Brain by Lisa Mosconi. I first read it because the author is married to a friend of mine, and he was promoting it. And I said, of course, I'm going to see what this is all about. And now in my current career of what we're doing today at Fierce Foundry, I'm learning a lot about women's health. And this book is just so influential to everything that we're doing, because it talks about the fact that women aren't different from men just because of particular body parts that we have. We're different everywhere. And this specifically talks about the brain. Mm-hmm. And it is not only really well written. I do not read fiction, but an entertaining nonfiction author like this, it's like worth reading again and again. So,
oh, that's cool. Is it, I read, 15 years ago or something like that, I read The Female Brain. Is it somewhat similar?
I have not read that one. So I'll have to look at that.
Yeah.
But she does have a bunch of other books too. I mean, she's focused, she's obviously a neuroscientist, and, focused on, she created the Women's Brain Initiative and doing tons of research to help us kind of, journey through later life, what happens to women's brains because of things like our hormones, and, how to prevent things like Alzheimer's. So that's really cool. Yeah.
Does she go into teenage brains too? Because I could have used that book when my kids were teenagers.
Not a ton, but yeah, I'm with you there. My kids are about to get there. I can sense it coming. So,
Well, tell us a little bit about your journey, Melissa. How did you get kind of started? What did you learn along your path, and what do you do now?
yeah. So I was on the path of going to law school, was temping in a marketing department that summer before law school, and fell in love with marketing. Fell in love with this idea of being creative in business. It didn't really jive for me previously. And so I decided to go to grad school for marketing communications and spent all of my career, most of my career, in marketing, mostly consumer marketing, entertainment marketing. I loved it. I wanted to market and sell products and programming and music and things that I loved. And one day jumped over to work in the tech startup world, which was a big leap. But the founders of this particular company wanted to kind of take in that idea of like how you sell entertainment and apply it to this tech product. And so that was really interesting to me. And within a year of being at that company, that was just about to turn 4 years old, we sold it for $750 million. So that was a ride. And from there, I was hooked. I loved this early stage tech world, continued to go on and work at, other tech startups until I got to a point where I was sort of like phased out for the early stage because I was too expensive as an employee. And that's when I took a co-founder of mine and we partnered to found our marketing agency called 5'2" Marketing. Yes, we're 5'2". As everybody always asks. And the focus was early stage startups and still in business today, still, running that machine, which is great. But what happened, which was really interesting, is we were meeting a lot of female founders coming to us and saying, I have an investor who's interested, but wants me to show customer traction. And, they've been, a year into it, beautiful prototype, this idea that they could build, but needed the money to build it. And here they are asking to spend their money with us on marketing, which made no sense whatsoever. So my co-founder and I said, let's just donate our time, to these women. And so that became this like thing that moved pretty quickly where we were developing this mentoring community of women who had resources, experience, expertise that could support these women and kind of bridge that gap to get that initial funding that would help them, get to that point where now they're actually building the product, scaling the product, and, going from there. So we did that for a few years. And in 2023, I sat down, we turned it into a nonprofit. We just something on the side that we were kind of, love to do. Mm-hmm. And I said, we could do more. We have built this entire network of experts that why don't we just start building products? Like what can we do that has more impact to this, gap in funding for women? And did a bunch of research and found this very unique idea called the studio model, venture studio model. And so we launched that. And now we're a year and a half into it. And I'm basically running this company where we build female-founded femtech companies. Mm-hmm. And the ultimate goal is that we build, launch, scale, exit. If we can exit these companies in less than 7 years, those women will go on to invest in more women. And so we're affecting it in a different way. We're not saying, hey, we need to change the minds of, all these male investors so that they start investing in these great products and great humans. Instead, we're going to put more women in that space and make it more accessible to the larger group of women out there.
I love it. That's a great way of kind of looking at things. And it's so interesting how you've kind of evolved from, first of all, what did your parents say when you're like, I'm not going to law school? I'm going to go.
God. Well, listen, the whole reason I was going to law school was because they had put that in my head that that's where I needed to go. I can remember my guidance counselor saying, you should go into journalism. You should do this, like all these great things. And I was like, no, I've got to go to law school. I'm going to be, and I kind of like carved out a path in like international law, like helping people abroad and doing like really cool things. But yeah, they were not happy at first. but they were supportive. I mean, they've always been very supportive.
Yeah. And so did you kind of where did you work at when you first started out in marketing? Was it what did you do?
Oh God. So it was a company that my father worked at. He had actually built the US division of this Dutch copier company. So if you think of like architect, like large format copying,
Oh,
that's what I was marketing. And I don't know, I found excitement in it, but I was very focused on the idea that I needed to market something I loved. And that's when I made a very, I'm going here. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to figure it out. And I moved on to work at DirecTV, which was sort of a tech startup back then, many years ago. And I was, the person who was responsible for launching the DirecTV with TiVo product before anybody even knew what TiVo was. Forget about, today, streaming, it's like a whole new world. So, I've always sort of had like that tech side of entertainment, which has been very cool. And, I loved it.
So that transition from like marketing into tech, you did marketing in the tech space during that?
Yeah. So there's always been a tech component. So like when I went to work in music, I worked for one of the first very early sort of subscription models for live streaming music, right?
Oh,
So, there's a very sort of like cool techie side of that. When I worked at A&E Television, my role was very new, director of digital marketing, which was like, okay, yeah, there's these ads and stuff like that. But the team that I built was focused on how do you utilize social media to get people to tune in. And we were doing things like building branded games, which had never been done before. And so there's always been this very cool tech side of, the work that I've done. And it aligned perfectly into this path and kind of where we are today.
I love it. And I also love how that progression continued where you're kind of at the leading edge of some of these tech and you brought that side of you that's like, I want to give back. I want to grow. I want to build something bigger.
Yeah. And have impact. Like, you meet these women who tell these stories about, what they're building and you're like, wow, how did you even think of that? Like, you just like want to dig in. And then you hear how they sat in a meeting with an investor who never once looked them in the eye. Like, it did not give them the time of day. And you're like, and you're telling them about this? Like, how are they not excited? No, they're just, don't even want to be in the room with you. It's like, wow. And you hear it over and over and over again. So, when I think about, and the reason we're focused in women's health is that, there's 70% of health tech or femtech founders are women, but they receive less than 50% of investments. So there's all these products and services that are just not being accounted for and taken into consideration when our health should be like the number one priority, as we are the main species on this planet. Like, let's think about this for a minute. Why are our body, I don't know if you know this statistic, but women weren't included in clinical trials until 1993.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
We're still way behind in even understanding some of the things that happen. And I think we're, now becoming smart enough to realize that the frustration we're having at the doctor is because of this history that we have to fix and we need to get into a much better place. So if I can be a part of that and get these women to a place where they can start investing in women, not just with the products that they're building, then I'm having the impact that I've never dreamed I'd be able to do. So
yeah, that's so great. You should check out a book. It was one that's recommended by one of my fearless females, but it's called Invisible Women. And it does talk a little bit about that, we just weren't included in some of those trials, some of those.
Yeah. And it's terrible. I mean, if you know anybody with a chronic illness, who the number of doctors that they go see before they even have any idea of what's causing, some of their issues, it's unreal.
Yeah. Well, I could get stuck on that all day long and talk about all of those things, but let's go ahead and move on. What's the best investment that you've made in yourself? Is there something that you've done that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I invested that way in myself?
It's funny you use the word investment, right? And I know there's the financial side of things, where you are very focused and what you do is so important, especially for women. I don't think I've ever made a financial investment in that way, but I have done, I've invested in myself in different ways. And I think investing in my mental health is why I can do what I do today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about, again, it's not about money. It's really first and foremost about time. And as a mother, as, someone who's literally running 2 companies, how do you find the time, to do that? And it took me about 2 years to get to a point where I put my mental health first every day. And for me, it's about knowing what I have to tackle for the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it stemmed from, which is really ironic but interesting, that I had lost my job and I had decided I was going to start this business. My husband was a stay-at-home dad prior to that. He was about to go back to work and COVID hit. So here we are in this like weird place. Now we had used up all our savings, well, most of them, to let him be the stay-at-home dad and take care of our children. Now he can't go back to work because he's a teacher. It's COVID. That's just not on the table. I'm, just freshly starting this new company and I lose all my clients because of COVID. And here we are with zero income. Zip. And trauma from the past started to come up, and all of a sudden this feeling of I can't take care of my family sent me down this terrible path, affected my mental health in a really negative way, to the point where coming out of COVID, I had gotten to this level of like social anxiety, couldn't even get to an event in person. I had to like set goals for myself. All right, you just got to walk in the door. Just got to talk to one person. And it was that moment when I was like, I need to fix this. This is wrong. Like, and, obviously got back on the path of financial stability, but it started with me taking time for myself and my mental health and figuring that out. And, I look back and I think, oh my God, I didn't even go to like friends' parties and things. Like that's how bad it was. And you don't see that. And that's when, that change has to happen. And I was able to do it. So that was, it's a long way of saying like, that is the way that I invest in myself.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. It's COVID did that to a bunch of people. I'm a natural introvert, so I've always set goals for myself when going to big gatherings. I'm like, you have to go in, you have to stay 35 minutes, and you need to talk to 2 people, Lorie.
I mean, I still do it, but now it's like, because I pushed myself, I'm a whole different person as a result of that. And I'm still an introvert. I still go home and like pass out for 3 days after an event because the energy to do that is completely wiped out.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that it's possible for us introverts, us fellow introverts. But I do think that there's something that we missed during COVID, where like at least for me, in my experience as an introvert, I was like, yeah, I'm staying home. That sounds amazing.
It was like a blessing in disguise,
Yeah, but then it did make it harder when the world started opening up and you needed to go out and quite frankly, we're made to have these connections and these conversations and stuff like that, and we need to stretch ourselves, but it did get just a little bit harder after we were stuck inside for a while. So
do you think that was 5 years ago?
I know. What about some bad advice? What is the worst advice that someone gave you, and did you take it?
There's been a lot of bad advice. People love to give advice, and don't realize that it's bad. I think the worst advice I got from my mom.
Okay.
Who said, you can't have it all. Can't have it all. You have to pick your path. And it, like there's no such thing, as having a career, having a family, and it all being perfect. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I really wasn't thinking about it. I didn't want to have kids until I met my second husband. And we were like, hey, let's just try and see. And, I had my kids in my 40s, and I'd already sort of established my career, and it actually worked out. I'd also, like really went against that because I don't think of it as like having it all, right? I mean, like, I don't have it all. I don't even know what all is. Okay. I have what I want, and I focus my time accordingly. So terrible of it. Like, you can't tell somebody you have to really think about what you're going to do. Like, that's terrible advice, right?
Yeah, and I do think that there's maybe it was true back in the day.
Well,
Like
for
back
my
in,
mom, by the time
yeah.
she had her fourth child, she was finishing grad school and, wanted a career, and she had to make that decision. And that decision was very hard for her. I know that.
Mhm.
And I think she was trying to protect me,
Mhm.
from this expectation that I might have had that I can do anything I want, and that, maybe I would fail at some point, and I appreciate that. But also, for other people, if it wasn't me, someone else hearing that would have, constructed their life accordingly, and might have, looked back and said, wow, I really wish I'd tried
Yeah.
this or that. And I know you love to talk about regrets and, like, that part of it. And I always say, like, there are things that I wish I had done differently, but I don't have regrets,
Yeah.
and that's, just part of my nature and who I am. And, and
Yeah.
my mom is very different. She has many regrets
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
feels.
And I think it's important too to realize that they may not have been able to do it all. Like the world wasn't set up for that kind of
It wasn't.
yeah.
No,
But
and that's what, pushes me even harder to be someone who makes that change, because I know that decision was hard for her, and
mhm.
that should never have to be the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
And hopefully we're, you know, maybe not this year for sure, but
But hopefully this lifetime, right?
this lifetime, we have to see that for sure.
Yeah. And I love that is something really important in what you do when you're helping women to grow their businesses and then invest in other women. Like women owned businesses know what women specific problems are, like taking care of, caretaking responsibilities
Right.
and different things like that. And if we can encourage setting up businesses that allow women to participate in this career, this professional space at the same time, they don't have to give up that dream of being
That's
a
right.
mom.
That's right. One of the things, so I'm a mentor at different tech accelerators, and the reason we chose a studio model, again, we basically co-found these companies, and we bring in all of the resources that they need outside of their expertise. And not only that, we bring in people who are vetted, who we know are going to do the work. And if they don't, we'll be the ones to take care of it, replace it, whatever needs to happen. But in addition to that, we maintain the support, throughout, and that includes providing community. That includes providing founder therapy. That includes, oh my God, my mother is sick. I have to go take care of her. We will keep things moving. I see it so many times. Women come out of these accelerators and they're kind of left for like, okay, well, what next? Oh no, you're on your own. Go figure it out. We've gotten you this far. You should be good. Women don't, that's not a way that we work. Like, we work better together. We work better in a supportive environment. That's a
Mhm.
big piece that we have to solve for and do differently. I see women in accelerators who have a life-changing event happen and don't have a way to continue this, amazing business that they've spent money and time and, have neglected other things in their lives for. All of a sudden it just drops and ends. Like, that shouldn't be the case. And so, because we are the caregivers, because we are the people who are having those additional responsibilities and have other things going on in our life, let's create organizations that support that.
Mhm.
And the other thing that we are focused on too is this 9 to 5, right? Like, that does not exist. Anybody I hire at my marketing agency, like I like to get to know like a little bit about them specifically for that reason. Okay. I ask the question, when do you work? And at first it's very confusing, like, well, when do you need me? No. When do you work? Let's figure out how this project is going to work in your schedule and, we'll figure it out. So we hire a lot of like, we have a lot of women who are like literally just, months out of having their first baby, trying to figure it out, don't know what the hell they're going to do. And, we support them. It's like, listen, you need to be off camera because you're feeding your baby. That's fine. Just, we just need to get the work done.
Yeah.
And we're good at it. So
yeah, I love that. So I won't ask about regrets, but I will ask, what would you have done differently? Is there any situation that you would go back and like, you're like, I know now, and I would handle that differently given another opportunity?
So it's really hard to answer that because I love where I am in my life right now. Right. Like I had an ex-husband, parts of me wish that I never did that. Like my parents had to spend the money on that wedding. Like, like I feel terrible. I wish I hadn't done that. But if I hadn't gone through that marriage, I wouldn't have met this amazing man in my life today. So, a lot of things I know are part of the path and the journey. But I did. So the Fierce Foundry is the first company that I decided to start solo on my own as a solo founder. I had an idea in my late 20s of a product I wanted to build, and I had a partner, and we were both going to invest about $30,000 into this company. And we spent every morning kind of coming up with this idea. And let me tell you something. This was 2002. You know what TaskRabbit is today? It was that using a Palm Pilot connecting middle management women with college students. And the benefit was that you couldn't have a personal assistant, when you're middle management, like it just financially and just it wasn't a thing. But man, what if you had one, how you could excel in your career?
Oh, yeah.
And what about these, young women who want to meet someone that they can be connected to when they get out of college, because now you've helped them, succeed. It was this whole ecosystem plus like providing services that, middle management women need in order to get to the next level. I mean, brilliant, right? We had the whole business plan. Because my partner pulled out, I said, I can't do this on my own. There's no way I could do this on my own. And I think about it now and I'm like, yeah, that was a brilliant idea. Clearly, because there's a million apps out there that do that today. And, again, would I have gotten here where I am today doing the things I'm doing? No. But would that have been really cool? Yeah, I kind of wish that I had just gone and done it.
Yeah. I kind of think about alternate universes, like Lorie in another universe is this, and like, what would that have looked like? It gives you something to think about.
It does. And the other thing that I started doing is thinking about those moments and how do they apply to me today? Mm-hmm. What am I doing in my life that I might look back on and say, oh, I should have done that differently? And like, it is sort of that dimensional thinking, and it can get really scary at times. But if you can think if anybody out there thinks like that, please reach out to me. I want to know how to do that, because I start to think about it and then I get like scared and nervous, and fear comes creeping back in. So
yeah, it is a really good litmus test, though, like to kind of think about, when I'm making a decision, a particularly difficult decision in my life, I'm like, am I going to regret doing this 10 years down the line or regret not doing it? Which one?
And that's like, then the weight of that, it's like already a hard decision as it is, but
yeah. If you could go back and talk to yourself at the beginning of your journey, talk to you specifically, what would you tell that 20-year-old or 21-year-old you?
Like it's so funny. It all comes back to fear. And I would say, don't be afraid, like follow your gut, that instinct, because I definitely was put in positions where there were opportunities for me that I didn't believe that I was worthy of, or, I was afraid of, not being the right I wasn't worthy. I wasn't capable, I definitely, especially at 20, like I, was studying marketing communications, and I loved, more the branding and the really creative side of it. But I ended up going into a more technical marketing role. Like, why? Because I didn't think I was worthy or good enough, or that was, where I belonged. But now, looking back, it's like, yes, you did. Why were you afraid? Jump in, just try it. Just go with it. What's the worst
Fearless,
that could happen?
right? Fearless. Be just a little bit fearless.
Exactly.
What scared you the most when you first started out on your journey? And does it still scare you today, or did you figure out how to work through that?
What scared me? I feel like there were a lot of things that scared me.
Mm-hmm.
I think even today, and I kind of mentioned this idea of like not doing the best possible job.
Mm-hmm.
And this like goes back to my relationship with my parents. I was the middle child, and in order to stand out, I had to be perfect. I had to do all the things. I had to really like follow through on things. And to this day, like the same thing when I was young, it just was like a physical reaction to, oh my God, am I not going to be perfect at this? Oh my God, am I going to let somebody down? And I had that fear all the time, as a very young person. And even like today, I still like, I think about it and I can still sort of feel that physical reaction to, oh my God, what if I like this podcast? What if I don't do a good job for you? It would just like break my heart, like that's a real feeling.
So how do you overcome it? Do you just try it, or is there some trick? Like, is there some mantra I can say to myself to get me past that?
Yes, actually there is. And this is actually, I was at an event last night, and there was a woman who's like, I really want to start my own company. I don't know how or where to start. And I kind of gave her advice on like where she could start. And then I said to her, this is something that I tell a lot of people that I don't think you realize. Like when you feel fear, that physical reaction to fear, just train your brain and say, this is excitement. It's exciting to feel that I don't know what's on the next page, or it's exciting to feel that something is happening, something new is happening, something, good or bad is going to happen. And if you say, now I get it, it's more like a chill. It actually, the physical reaction changes to something very different. And for me, what I did is I do a lot of yoga. And at the time I was in the studio doing yoga like every day. And I would basically, that was my mantra. It's not fear, it's excitement. It's not fear, it's excitement. It's not fear, it's excitement. And like, make that, whatever that feeling was, whether it was in my stomach or my chest or my neck, my throat, like when I feel that, that's exciting. It's good. It's a good. And you feel like a crazy person at first, but eventually it's mind over matter, and it allows you to become fearless, I think. At least it worked for me.
Yeah, I'm going to try it. Because there are those times when you just are like, oh gosh, I'm going to fall flat on my face and everyone's going to see.
Yeah. And that's like, it's like when we were getting dressed to go to the events yesterday, I didn't have the right shoes. And my coworker said to me, nobody's looking at your shoes. And when you start to think about that, then you stop thinking about it. Nobody's looking at my shoes. And that's the truth. Like, unless you're in their head and, you know what they're thinking, who cares?
They're probably looking at their own shoes. They're way more worried about their own shoes.
Yes.
Yeah. What about any unique challenges? Did you face any unique challenges through this journey?
Yeah. I mean, listen, being completely financially unstable, to this day, I think my husband and I have PTSD, but I'll tell you about the challenge first, and then I'll tell you kind of where it got us. Because this is the other thing. Like when you overcome something big and you can look back and you have someone that you've been through that with, it's kind of amazing. But, I was in a position where we had no money coming in, right? No income whatsoever. And it was like, you couldn't even get a job at a Starbucks because Starbucks were closing, you know, and I remember thinking, you know, okay, worst case scenario. What's the worst case scenario? We have to sell our house. We have to, you know, and that exercise with, you know, the people you love who, you know, I'm the breadwinner in the family. I mean, we were crying on the couch, like crying and fighting. Oh my God, the fights, because and I understand where my husband's coming from. Like his expectation was, I'm taking care of the kids. You're taking care of, you know, bringing in the money to allow us to live the life that we want to live. And he was very supportive of, yes, I want you to start your own business. And I want you to do this for you. And to that, you know, even through these like fights, you know, me like blowing up and saying, you wanted me to do this, you supported me, you know, then we calm down and it's like, yes, I'm sorry. I will get through this. And I think like when we finally turned the page, he also now had this like panic and anxiety about going back to work after 7 years, which I know a lot of women face, which is also a real challenge. And he was having that. He couldn't get himself to even like request an interview. And so we're going through all of this at once, right? And finally he finally gets a part-time job, goes and he's killing it and he's doing great. And then, you know, my business takes off and it's like, oh my, you know, and we kind of looked at each other like, are we there? No. Keep the budget. Let's like, you know, and now like, you know, we come full circle. Like we couldn't be happier with each other. We understand when things go up and down and, you know, that's going to be part of life. And yes, we still fight, but we're there for each other through it because we went through what was, you know, the hardest thing for us, you know, so far in our lives. And, you know, now we think about our financial future differently. Like we are very good budgeters.
Yeah.
And like the idea that, you know, the way that we spent money before, like I think about it, and there's a regret, like, God damn it, we should have been putting that in this and saving it here. And, you know, that's one thing I don't want to ever have again in my life is regretting financial stability. And we're on our path back and we're getting, you know, back to having the money that we'll need, you know, to retire and very focused on that. But that was challenging. And there was no one you could go to. Who are you going to talk to? I have no money. Even my siblings, like the idea of like coming to them with that during that time, it's just not something you can do.
Yeah, it's a very lonely, scary place. And it would be challenging if your roles were reversed, where you were the breadwinner and your husband was the stay-at-home mom, you know? So it just
nobody gets that.
That must have been a really difficult, you know, I've already heard from other people that, you know, it's just difficult taking on those, especially at that time, taking on different roles. Now it's a little bit more common.
Yeah. And thank God for that, because fathers are so good at, you know, taking care of kids, and the experience is different, you know, and it's so amazing to see.
Yeah. My brother-in-law he stays at home while my sister works, and he does such a great job with those kids. I'm just always so impressed with.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people were, you know, they really questioned that relationship early on with us. Really, you're not, you know, this is how it's going to work. You know, people like my mom, like this was definitely against the norm. And when they saw when they see these kids today and the work that he has done, like we'll call it work because that's what it is, they have a whole new respect for him and for, you know, that dynamic. And yeah, it's good to see that is changing.
Melissa, what is the thing you are most proud of?
Oh my God, the hardest question by far.
I know.
Because I don't take time to sit and take pride in my work. I don't. And I need to learn how to do that. I'm certainly proud of jumping off into this new business of, you know, working to build these company founded by women. Like I'm very proud that I said to myself, I can do this and I'm going to do this. But I take more pride in the people around me and the teams that I have had the pleasure of working with, I mean, almost everybody who's ever worked with me or for me, like, they are family and they are friends. It's amazing when you work with like-minded people, what you're able to accomplish together. And I think I'm really proud of being able to pick the right people to work with and to work together with people that, are kind of want to achieve the same thing and know that we can do it together.
Yeah. I think that you probably bring that out in those people, maybe not picking the right people to work with. Maybe they become the right people because they're in an environment where you're supportive and helping.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think of that. I like to say that I'm proud of the leader that I have become, that I can lead by example. Every now and then, I make mistakes, and
we all do.
Something to learn, but yeah, I am proud of that.
Yeah. Any advice for a young lady who's just kind of starting down this path that you're so successful at that you would give her?
There's a couple things that I say a lot. I think I mentor a lot of women, so especially young women, and everybody's very different. For the women that are, I want a career, I want a family. This whole idea of you can't have it all. I always remind them that I had my kids in my 40s. Now I know physically that can be impossible. I know physically in general there can be challenges with having families, but I think everything happens for a reason. And so if you choose your career first, know that there are options, and don't put the pressure on yourself on both sides, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're like, I want a career, but I really want a family, the partner that I referenced, that I had that great idea in my 20s, she never really settled down with anybody. And she was like, I just really want a family. And she went and she got herself a family in her way. And she's such an inspiration for that, because it was like, she actually wanted a family more than she wanted a husband or a partner. Mm-hmm. And so I think the advice is really like, what is it that you want? And don't be afraid to make that the priority. There's, don't worry about what other people are doing and other people are saying. Oh my God, especially in your 20s, that's where all that bad advice comes from. Everybody wants to tell you what to do. Mm-hmm. Don't listen to them. I think, the path is going to be a long one, and there's lots of ways that things are going to change in your life that you have no idea about yet. So do what makes you happy, focus on that, and the other things will come. I think that's probably especially for early 20s, when you're a little bit older, I might, say, hey, leave that job, try something new. As someone who's been laid off 5 times, each of those experiences were amazing for me. When you have the opportunity to go try something new, and anything can happen. So,
and just keep reminding yourself that it's an adventure and it's exciting, right?
It's exciting, right? Embrace that feeling. It's exciting.
Well, thank you, Melissa, for the time that you spent with us today and going through your journey. If I have a young woman who's listening who wants to get in touch with you and just chat, ask questions, how does she do that?
Melissa@thefiercefoundry.com. That is my email address. Feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Thank you so much for spending the time with us.
My pleasure.